Welcome to Scraps TV, brought to you by the Siskiyou County Arts Council. Scraps TV is the digital counterpart to the Scraps Art Cart program, where we collect and repurpose items that are typically discarded or recycled and offer free art materials and activities for our community at local events. Today we are going to be making paper beads out of scrap paper that can be used to make jewelry or other projects. Some supplies you will need for this project include a ruler, some Mod Podge, in this case I'm using the off-brand Decoupage from Dollar General. You'll need some scrap paper, in this case I'm going to be using used Christmas wrapping paper. You also need a cheap paintbrush. Don't use a nice one because Mod Podge gets pretty sticky and can ruin your brushes. You need scissors, pen or a pencil, and then I'm using a carton that I cut apart. One part I'm putting the Mod Podge in, and the other one I'm going to use as a dry rack. Then we'll use some toothpicks to roll the paper beads onto. To make the paper beads, we'll need to cut out triangle-shaped strips from our scrap paper. I'm going to make 1-inch beads, but you can measure whatever size you want. Measuring just makes it so that they're somewhat consistent. So here I could probably fit about 7 strips on each side, so that's going to be 14 strips total. And so I'm just going to go along and mark out the 1-inch measurements. Then I'm going to use this edge here to make kind of like a diagonal triangle. The rest of the beads I'm going to make centered, but for the diagonal one, it's going to make it fat on one end and then skinny on the other, so it'll make like a little triangle shaped bead. And then for the other ones, I'm going to go and measure out the halfway point, so at a 1/2 inch, and mark it on the other side of the paper. Okay, so here's the halfway point, and I'm just gonna go along the ruler to mark it on the other side. Right about here. And then I'm gonna connect that point with the mark I made earlier to make a centered triangle. And then connect it to the other side. And then that will make a bead that is fatter in the center and skinnier on the edges, making kind of like an oval shape. And then I'm just going to do that for the rest of them. And then measuring out the centers on all of them. And then making the triangles for all of them. Next, we're gonna cut these strips out, just following the lines that we made. I'm gonna cut off the edge here because it's a little jagged, just to make it a bit easier on myself when it comes to rolling. And now we have our paper strips and we're ready to start rolling the beads. So you kind of take your toothpick and you wrap the paper around it and get it tucked in. And then you want to keep rolling it around the toothpick, trying to keep it centered. After you get a little ways on it, you're going to want to apply some of the Mod Podge to keep it from slipping and hold your bead in place. And then keep rolling, keeping it somewhat tight. And then add some more Mod Podge every now and then to keep it from slipping. Once you start getting towards the end of the paper, you're going to want to add more Mod Podge, because that's what's going to hold our bead together for the finished bead. So I'm just going to cover the whole strip that's left. See, and this one's torn a little on the edge, so I'm going to add some Mod Podge in there once I'm done rolling it. And there you have it, our first paper bead. So yeah, I'm going to add the glue there. Just a little bit underneath and stick it down. And then I'm going to coat the whole thing with Mod Podge to seal it up and help make the bead a little bit more water resistant. These are made of paper, so they're not going to be totally water resistant, but this will help with the durability. Then once it's all coated like this, we're going to set it in the egg carton to dry. This will help suspend it in the air so the glue won't get on anything and the finish won't be ruined. Now we're going to do the same thing for all the other beads. So now that I have all of these done and they've dried, I can remove them from the toothpicks. They should come off pretty easy. I'm just sliding them off. And then here's our paper beads. Check it out. So these can be used to make a lot of things like bracelets, necklaces, keychains, whatever you want to make with them. So I made a bracelet out of mine. I just tied it together using some string and my typical knots that I would use for a bracelet. If you tried this project, be sure to check out our Facebook page and leave a picture of what you made. We'd love to see it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy crafting!